All right, this is the part 2 about hell here. Trying to make this quick for TikTok. And this is Luke 16. Now, a lot of people say that this is a parable, but there's no claim that this is a parable, and there's no explaining of the parable. So the first thing I would like to do before I really get into this is to explain that when Jesus gives a parable, a lot of times he'll say that he's telling a parable, right? And whenever he does a parable, he never uses people's names. He always uses examples. Like, he doesn't say Bob went and was sowing seed. He said, no, the sower was sowing seed. Or when he's talking about a king, he doesn't say it's God. He says a king left the vineyard to people, and he doesn't say to Israel, right? He doesn't give names, right? He has certain just random generic people representing people, right? And not only that, a lot of the times, right after the parable, he ends up explaining the parable. And the times where he doesn't explain the parable, in one gospel, you go to another one and it's explained over there. But here, it's a story, because there's no explaining of this parable, and there is no metaphors, as in here, the rich man is rich man, and it doesn't say, oh, a poor man. No, it has a name, Lazarus, because it literally is talking about Lazarus, right? And then it says Abraham's bosom, and Abraham's there. Abraham represents Abraham, right? Everything here is a story. It's not a parable, right? All these things represent what they represent. They're not representing something else, right? So with that being said, just to go through this fast, you can pause and read it if you haven't already. But I'm not going to go through it because I want to try to make my TikTok videos a little quicker. But what we see here is that the rich man goes to a place called hell, and he's tormented in flame, right? So he died, and he goes to hell and is dealing with hellfire. And what I was talking about in my last video in Mark chapter 9, Jesus warns about cutting off a hand, cutting off a foot, plucking out your eye, if it will prevent you from going to hell and to dealing with unquenching fire, dealing with hellfire, right? So we see here of the rich man who probably thought gain was godliness, who was probably like the Pharisee from the other video I did about Luke chapter 18, the parable between the Pharisee and the publican. And he goes to hell. He didn't pluck out his eye. He didn't cut off his hand. He didn't cut off his foot. So he gets thrown into the hellfire because of the sin, right? And it's unquenching fire. He's in hellfire. So what Jesus was talking about in Mark chapter 9 was not a parable. He was saying, hey, you'll be thrown into hell with unquenching fire. You'll be thrown into hellfire. And here we have a story of someone thrown into that when they die. So, yeah, it's not some joke, right? You know, a lot of these people, they like to change things up. They like to act like hell's not serious. They like to say that hell's the grave, so everybody goes to hell because everybody dies and goes into the grave. No, that's not what is being talked about. And when they're like, oh, unquenching fire, well, that's when you're judged and you're burned up. Well, then why is it called hellfire? Why are you thrown into hellfire, the grave? If there's also fire, why is there fire in the grave? Like, you're totally not grasping how your view is obviously flawed. And if you think, oh, you're burned up, you're consumed, how come the rich man here is not being consumed? He's suffering in there, not being consumed. This is why it's better for you to cut off your hand or your foot or your eye to not be cast into this. Because you will burn in this place without being consumed. And that's kind of unimaginable, right? And that's why people like to say, oh, hell is just the grave, and the final judgment, you'll get burned up into ash and no longer exist. But you see, these things actually put the sinner at ease, where they're not worried about, oh, it's okay if I don't accept the gospel because, well, yeah, maybe I'll just burn up, but then I won't exist anymore and I'll be fine. I don't mind not existing anymore. There's a lot of people like that. Atheists already accept that kind of view. So you telling them, oh, God's just going to make you not exist anymore, and they're like, well, that's all, I'm already expecting that when I die. So you're not giving them the fear of God, right? You're not showing his actual holiness, where he sees sin much worse than we do. It's not something that, oh, you get a little slap on the wrist. No, you're going to be thrown into hellfire forever. So get right with God while you can, because your time might be up right now. God forbid it is. But you might be going there right now. You never know when an aneurysm will hit. A little meteor the size of a penny comes through your head right now. You know, weird things happen. You trip, fall down some stairs, and your neck snap, right? And then your life is judged. So, yeah. This preaching that hell isn't what it really is gets a lot of Christians to think, well, it's not a big deal if I don't preach. Like, if I don't try to reach others, it's not a big deal because, yeah, all right, they just won't exist anymore. That's not so bad. But when you realize, well, these people are going to be suffering forever and saying, why didn't you tell me? That's a little different. That hits a little different, doesn't it? Doesn't it get you motivated? But anyway, that's that. Thank you for watching the video. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to pray that God keeps this ministry going. And if you want to support the ministry, hey, you can do so here on TikTok by just giving a heart, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing. And if you want to support some more, there's 4 ways you can do so in the description info box there if you want. That would be greatly appreciated, because it'll support this one and it'll support my other channels where I do longer, more in-depth videos on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble, and some articles here and there and what have you. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.